reception party? Richard raised his glass and grinned. My mother-in-law only came because she heard the food would be amazing, he said into the microphone. The room laughed politely. I kept my smile steady, but inside I felt the sting. That morning, I'd spent 3 careful hours getting ready. Soft gray hair styled, a touch of makeup, my navy dress that always makes me feel elegant. At 66, it takes time to look my best. I wanted my daughter Rebecca to feel proud. The rooftop restaurant shimmered with crystal lights and live jazz. Guests in sharp suits and glittering dresses buzzed with excitement. 3 years of quiet help from me, 36 mortgage checks drawn from my late husband's life insurance, had helped make this night possible. Rebecca once called it temporary. Temporary had stretched into years. Richard's speech flowed easily, thanks to bosses, colleagues, his beautiful wife. Then his eyes found me in the corner, and he delivered that little jab. Laughter followed, the uneasy kind people offer when they're not sure whether it's safe to stay silent. I held my smile, remembering every secret payment I'd made to keep their dream house afloat. When the party ended, I slipped out unnoticed, rode the elevator down, and called a cab. The next morning, I opened my checkbook for the next mortgage payment and paused. Richard's words echoed in my head. For the first time, I saw exactly how they saw me. Not a mother, not family, just a convenience. My hand didn't tremble as I wrote one clear word across the check. Canceled. The old me would have written another check and swallowed the humiliation. But something inside shifted after that rooftop party, and a stronger version of me woke up. At 7:43 a.m. Tuesday, my phone buzzed. Rebecca's name lit the screen. Mom, what happened? Her voice snapped like ice. The mortgage payment bounced. The bank called Richard. I propped a pillow behind my back and looked out at the maple tree John and I planted 30 years ago, its leaves just starting to turn gold. I canceled the check, I said evenly. Silence, then lower. You what? Why would you do that? I think you already know. If this is about Richard's little joke, was it a joke, Rebecca? Because I didn't hear anything funny about being mocked in front of a room full of strangers. She sighed. You're overreacting. Richard was just trying to lighten the mood, making fun of the woman who's been paying your mortgage for 3 years. That's his idea of humor. Another long pause, then the coaxing tone she's used since childhood. Mom, please. It was one bad comment. You know how Richard gets when he's nervous? I close my eyes, remembering all the jokes over the years. My clothes at Thanksgiving, my phone skills at Christmas, my driving on my birthday. This isn't about one night, I said quietly. It's about respect, or the lack of it. So you're punishing us because your feelings are hurt? That's petty, Mom. The old me would have apologized, but I wasn't that woman anymore. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm ending something I should never have started. Richard earns a strong salary. You work full-time. You're both in your 40s. There's no reason I should be paying your mortgage. We were counting on that money, she blurted. We booked the villa in Tuscany next month and ordered new furniture for the sunroom. I felt a chill. You've been using my help to fund vacations and redecorating? That's not what I meant. Budgets work that way, Mom. The mortgage money frees us up for other things. I thought I was keeping a roof over your heads, not underwriting your lifestyle. You're being cruel, she whispered. After everything we've done for you. I almost laughed. And what exactly have you done for me, Rebecca? We invite you to events. We call on holidays. Richard fixed your garbage disposal last year. In return, I've given you over $86,000. The line went silent, except for her breathing. Then, the honeyed voice returned. Mom, let's not let one misunderstanding ruin our relationship. Come for dinner this weekend. We can talk like adults. I'm not coming to dinner, I said, and I'm not writing any more checks. You can't just cut us off. What kind of mother does that? The word abandon stung, but only for a heartbeat. I haven't abandoned anyone. I've simply stopped being used. Dad would be so disappointed in you, she shot back. No, I said calmly. John would be disappointed that his daughter treats his wife this way. A sharp breath. A door slammed in the background. Richard wants to talk to you, she said coldly. Tell Richard congratulations again on his promotion. Now he can pay his own mortgage. I ended the call before she could answer. My hands trembled, but my mind felt clearer than it had in years. The phone rang again. I turned it off, brewed a cup of tea, and sat with the quiet. Whatever storm might follow, I would meet it on my terms. 3 days later, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my son Michael on the porch, hands in his pockets, face full of worry. The family peacemaker standing between the past and the person I'd finally become. "Hey, Mom." Michael leaned in for a quick kiss when I opened the door. "Got time for coffee?" I studied his face, so much like his father's, and saw the tension in his eyes. "Rebecca called you, didn't she?" He sighed, running a hand through his sandy hair. "Can we talk inside?" In the kitchen, I set water to boil while he sat at the table, fidgeting with a coaster. My son had never been good at hiding his feelings. "Rebecca's pretty upset," he began as I placed a steaming mug in front of him. "I imagine she is," I said, taking the seat across from him. "Did she tell you why?" "She said you cut them off because of something Richard said. She thinks you're overreacting." "And what do you think?" Michael stared into his coffee. "I think there's probably more to the story." So I told him everything. 3 years of mortgage checks, countless temporary loans, and the public humiliation at Richard's promotion party. Michael's face darkened. That was a terrible thing for him to say. Yes, but it was revealing. It showed exactly how he and they see me. "Still, Mom, ending the payments without warning is pretty harsh." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you know I was paying their mortgage?" He looked embarrassed. "Rebecca once mentioned you were helping, but did she mention I've given them over $86,000? His eyes widened. "No, absolutely not. And did you know they've used that money for luxury trips and new furniture?" He shook his head, looking more uncomfortable by the second. "Michael, I'm not cutting them off to be cruel. I'm stopping because I finally understand I've been used." He was quiet for a long moment. "Rebecca said Dad would have wanted you to help them." I almost laughed. "Your father worked hard so I'd be secure in my later years, not so Rebecca and Richard could vacation in Italy." Michael nodded slowly, then hesitated. "There's something else you should know." My stomach tightened. "What?" "It's Richard. He talks about you when you're not around, not kindly." "What does he say?" Michael shifted in his seat. "Jokes about how you're always asking about their finances. That you're stingy." "Stingy?" I said, stunned. "After $86,000? I didn't know until today, Mom." "I'm sorry. What else?" He sighed. "He calls you the Bank of Martha. Says you keep track of every penny so you can hold it over them someday." Each word landed like a knife. "And Rebecca? Does she correct him?" Michael's silence was the only answer I needed. The doorbell rang, sparing him further confession. Grace, my neighbor of 20 years, stood on the porch holding a casserole dish. "Made too much lasagna," she said with a grin. I invited her in, grateful for the interruption. After introduction, she settled at the table while I poured her coffee. Grace lowered her voice. "I've been meaning to tell you something I overheard at the Miller's barbecue. That son-in-law of yours, handsome fellow, but my word, what a mouth. He was by the drinks table talking about your pension, calling you..." She paused. "An ATM with wrinkles." I'm sorry to repeat it, but you should know. Michael looked stricken. "He did." "I'm afraid he did," Grace confirmed. Said it was handy having a mother-in-law with a comfortable retirement fund and no one to spend it on but herself. The room fell silent. I turned to the counter, gripping the edge to steady myself. "Mom, I'm so sorry," Michael said quietly. I surprised myself by feeling more resolved than hurt. "Well," I said, "now we all know exactly where we stand." Grace patted my hand. "My Harold always said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." I nodded, unexpectedly grateful for Richard's cruel joke. Without it, I might have kept writing checks for years, blind to the contempt behind those smiles. Michael stayed another hour. When he left, he hugged me tightly. "I'll talk to Rebecca," he promised. This isn't right. I watched him drive away, not holding out much hope. Rebecca was as stubborn as her husband. That night, I pulled out the box of financial records I'd kept for years. Loan after loan, check after check, each neatly dated and logged. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely certain of my next move. Some withdrawals had been for the mortgage. Others, supposed emergencies, always seemed to appear right after luxury purchases. As I flipped through my records that night, a cold truth settled over me. This wasn't about one cruel joke at a party. This was years of quiet exploitation by the people who should have cared for me most. The next morning I met with Harriet, my trusted advisor at Coastal Credit Union. She listened carefully as I explained everything. "Let me be sure I understand," she said, peering over her glasses. "You've been covering your daughter and son-in-law's mortgage for 3 years, and no one else knew?" I nodded, cheeks warm with embarrassment. "You'd like a total of what you've given them?" "Yes, I've kept notes, but I need the full picture." Harriet's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Martha, these withdrawals aren't just the monthly mortgage. Look," she turned the screen toward me. "Besides the $2,400 every month, there are dozens of additional transfers. $5,000 for a car repair, $3,200 for dental work, $7,500 for a kitchen emergency, nearly $5,000 for a roof issue. Do you recall approving all these?" My stomach clenched. I remembered every teary phone call, every urgent story. Each time I'd written a check without hesitation. "Adding it up," Harriet said gently. "You've given them about $127,000 over 3 years. The number landed like a physical blow. I'd known it was large. Hearing the total made me lightheaded. "That's roughly a third of your retirement saving," Sosnestina, she added softly. "At this rate, you could deplete everything in 7 years. 7 years. I was only 66. I could easily live 20 more. What should I do?" My voice sounded small. "First, stop all withdrawals, which you've already done. Second, consider talking to an elder law attorney to protect your assets. Is that really necessary? When family grows used to easy money," Harriet said, "they rarely stop willingly." I thought of Rebecca's angry phone call, how quickly she'd moved from outrage to guilt-tripping. I felt a fresh resolve. "I'll make an appointment," I said. Back home, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the printed report. Every dollar, every date, every check neatly logged. No wonder they were so comfortable. I had been underwriting their lifestyle the entire time. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Rebecca, arms crossed, foot tapping. I opened the door. She swept inside without waiting. "We need to talk," she said, pacing the living room. "Michael told me you think we've been using you. Haven't you?" She flushed. "We've had financial setbacks. You offered to help." "Did I offer?" I asked quietly, holding up Harriet's report. "Or did you ask? Did I ever volunteer to give you $127,000? Rebecca blinked. "It can't be that much." "It is. I have the records." She quickly regained her composure. "So what?" "You're comfortable, Mom. Dad left you secure. What else are you going to spend it on? Perhaps my own retirement, my health care, or simply things that bring me joy, rather than funding your and Richard's luxuries." Her expression hardened. "This is about Richard's comment at the party, isn't it? You're punishing us because your feelings got hurt. This isn't punishment. It's recognition that I've been taken advantage of." "Taken advantage of?" She gave a sharp laugh. "You've lived here 40 years? Your house is paid off. You have no expenses beyond a garden and groceries. We're family. Family helps each other. Where was that family spirit?" I asked. "When Richard mocked me at his celebration? Or when he called me an ATM with wrinkles at the Miller's barbecue?" Rebecca's eyes flickered. Information she knew. "He was just joking. No, people joke about things they find funny. Richard finds financial exploitation amusing." "That's ridiculous." "We were going to pay you back." "When?" I asked. She hesitated. "When we were more stable." I waited, but no real answer came. And in that silence, I felt the door quietly close on the Bank of Martha. For good. "You make over $200,000 a year between you," I said evenly. "You own a house you could never have afforded without my help. You take luxury trips and buy designer furniture. When exactly were you planning to become financially stable?" The front door opened without a knock. Richard strode in, face flushed. "There you are," he said to Rebecca. "I told you not to come here alone." "I don't recall inviting either of you," I replied. Richard turned to me, charm gone. "Look, Martha, this has gone on long enough. We need that mortgage payment." I held up the financial statement. "Did you know you and Rebecca have taken a total of $127,000 from me in the past 3 years? He barely glanced at the paper. "So what? You're not hurting for money, and it's not like you have anyone else to spend it on." The bluntness stole my breath. Rebecca tried a softer tactic. "Mom, we're family. We've always been there for you. Remember when you had that fall last year? Who drove you to the hospital? You did. After I called 3 times and you complained about missing a hair appointment, I said quietly. Color rose in her cheeks. Richard stepped closer, voice dropping into the persuasive tone he used with clients. Martha, you have to understand. We've built a life around certain financial expectations. You can't just pull the rug out from under us. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the calculating man behind the charm. I'm not pulling any rug, Richard. I'm closing my checkbook. And our mortgage? Our lifestyle? He demanded. That, I said, standing to end the conversation, is your problem to solve. Unless you're here to thank me for the $127,000 I've already given you, I think you should leave. His eyes hardened. You'll regret this. You're not as independent as you think. The threat hung in the air as I guided them to the door. My hands were steady. My heartbeat was calm. The old Martha would have begged for peace at any cost. The woman who stood in that quiet house, as their car screeched away, had no fear left, only dignity, reclaiming my future. The weeks after that confrontation were silent. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits demanding money. Michael said they were regrouping, which I took to mean plotting their next move. I used the quiet to reclaim my life. First, I met with Patricia Winters, an elder law attorney recommended by Harriet, my financial advisor. Patricia listened without judgment. What you're describing is sadly common, she said. Family financial exploitation of seniors happens more often than people think, especially when there's a healthy retirement account involved. I wouldn't call it exploitation, I began, then stopped. That was the old me still making excuses. Patricia's gaze softened. Martha, if someone else told you this story, a widow whose daughter and son-in-law took $127,000 and mocked her behind her back, what would you call it? I swallowed hard. Exploitation. Exactly. And it rarely stops on its own. Let's talk about protecting your assets. By the end of our meeting, we had a plan. Revise my will, set up trust with Michael as co-trustee, and create financial power of attorney documents that excluded Rebecca and Richard completely. What about my house? I asked. We'll place it in the trust, Patricia said. That way, no one can pressure you to sell or take out loans against it. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in years. For too long, I'd carried the burden of keeping Rebecca and Richard afloat. Now I was protecting not just my money, but my peace of mind. A new beginning. I decided to focus on things that brought me joy. The community garden project that had lingered on my to-do list for months finally called to me. With fresh resolve, I phoned Phyllis, the coordinator, and volunteered to head the herb garden committee. Martha, we'd love to have you, she said. We meet Thursdays at the community center. That Thursday, I stood among enthusiastic gardeners, eager to transform an empty lot into a shared oasis. I'm thinking lavender along the southern edge, I suggested. It's drought-resistant and attracts pollinators. Brilliant idea, said Henry, a retired botanist with kind eyes and a ready smile. I have some seedlings I can donate. For 2 hours, we planned and laughed, my knowledge of medicinal herbs proving unexpectedly valuable. By the time we broke for coffee, I felt more alive than I had in years. You really know your plants, Henry said as he handed me a cup. My husband and I used to grow everything ourselves, I told him, smiling. And for the first time in a long while, the future felt entirely and happily my own. After John died, I kept the garden alive. It still connects me to him. Henry, the kind botanist from our community garden, understood immediately. My Margaret passed 5 years ago, he said. The garden was our thing too. We talked easily. Classic films, jazz, travel. For the first time in years, I was having conversations that weren't about someone else's demands. Thursday garden nights became the highlight of my week. I donated herbs, helped secure a small grant for irrigation, and found myself looking forward to Henry's company as much as the work itself. One evening, my phone rang. Rebecca's name lit the screen. Mom. Her voice was soft, almost careful. How are you? I'm well, thank you. And you? We're managing. A pause. Actually, Richard and I think it's time we all sat down together. We'd like to invite you to dinner Saturday. Just us. No pressure. Just a chance to clear the air. I knew my daughter. There's always an agenda. Who else will be there? Only us. Family. I remembered Patricia's warning. Manipulation often returns in a gentler form. I thought of the $127,000 already gone, of being called an ATM with wrinkles. "I'll come," I said evenly. Rebecca exhaled in relief. "Wonderful." 7 o'clock, Richard's making his roast chicken. After hanging up, I called Michael for perspective. "They invited you now?" he asked, surprised. "Interesting timing. Richard's promotion isn't going well, and I heard their mortgage company sent late payment notice. The pieces fit neatly together. Of course they wanted to clear the air. They needed access again. "I'm going," I told him, but with my eyes wide open. The dinner. Saturday night I dressed in a deep blue blouse and black slacks, polished but not extravagant, and chose a good mid-range wine. Driving to their colonial home, the one I'd unknowingly financed, I felt calm. The old Martha would have been anxious, desperate to keep the peace. That woman no longer existed. Rebecca greeted me with a hug that felt rehearsed. "Mom, you look wonderful." "Come in." Richard appeared all smiles. "Martha, great to see you. May I take your coat?" "That wine looks fantastic." I handed him the bottle, meeting his eyes. His smile flickered before settling back in place. "Dinner's almost ready," he said. "Let's have a drink first." I chose water, not the cocktail he offered, and sat on the edge of their immaculate new furniture. The same sunroom set Rebecca once mentioned during an emergency. "So," I said pleasantly, "you wanted to clear the air." Rebecca and Richard exchanged a quick glance. Richard leaned forward, voice smooth. "Martha, we've had time to reflect. We never truly expressed our gratitude for your help with the mortgage. That was wrong." "It was," I replied simply. The plain agreement threw him off script. He glanced at Rebecca, who picked up the line with practiced warmth. "Mom, family supports each other, just like you always taught us. Yes, we may have relied on your generosity too much, but we're working toward independence." "I'm glad to hear that," I said, my tone steady. I sipped my water and waited. Years of experience had taught me, when Rebecca talked about communication, what she really meant was compliance. This time, I wasn't giving it. Richard's confidence returned as he leaned closer. "Exactly, and that's why we wanted this dinner. To show you we're taking responsibility." The oven timer chimed and Rebecca slipped into the kitchen. The moment she left, Richard inched toward me on the sofa. "Martha," he said in a low voice. "Rebecca's devastated by this rift. She cries at night, afraid she's lost her mother." "How terrible for her," I answered evenly. He pressed on, missing the edge of my tone. "We've hit a short-term cash flow issue. My new position pays bonuses quarterly instead of monthly. It's just temporary." "And your savings?" I asked lightly. He hesitated. "Investments haven't performed as expected. And the vacation to Tuscany. Did that help or hurt your finances?" His eyes narrowed. "Rebecca mentioned that, did she?" Before I could answer, Rebecca reappeared, announcing dinner. The dining room glittered with candlelight and my grandmother's china, the set I'd given her years ago. "Wine, Mom," Rebecca offered, already pouring. "No, thank you. I'm driving." "You could stay over," she suggested quickly. "We could have breakfast, talk more." "That's thoughtful," I said. "But I have plans in the morning." Community garden workday. Her eyebrows lifted in surprise, as if it had never occurred to her that I might have a life outside their orbit. Richard carved the roast chicken, admittedly delicious, while conversation drifted to safe topics. Michael's promotion, a cousin's upcoming wedding, neighborhood gossip. Almost like old times, except for the tension humming beneath every word. After the plates were cleared, Richard disappeared and returned carrying a folder. Instinctively, I stiffened. "Martha," he began, placing it on the table, "we've been thinking about your financial situation." "My financial situation is just fine, thank you." He pushed the folder closer. "We ran some numbers, your retirement funds, projected expenses, what you could reasonably contribute to the family without affecting your lifestyle." I stared at him, incredulous. "You did what?" Rebecca slid back into the room and placed a hand on my arm. "Mom, we're just trying to help. Money management can be overwhelming at your age." I gently moved her hand away. "I'm 66, not 96. I have an advisor who manages my finances quite well." Richard opened the folder, revealing neat spreadsheets. "According to our calculations, you could easily contribute $2,000 a month. That's less than before, you'll notice." The audacity took my breath away. "This would be for family support," Rebecca added quickly. "Not just the mortgage. medical costs, future education, family vacations, investments in our shared future. I looked from one hopeful face to the other, a calm clarity settling over me. No, Richard blinked. Excuse me? No, I repeated, folding my napkin with care. I will not be contributing $2,000 monthly or any amount to your household. Rebecca's voice wavered. Mom, be reasonable. We worked hard on this plan. I can see that, I said, gesturing toward the folder. My answer is still no. Richard's charm evaporated. This is the thanks we get after welcoming you into our home. Including you in our lives? Including me? I raised an eyebrow. You mean when you humiliated me at your promotion party? Or when you called me an ATM with wrinkles behind my back? That was a joke, he muttered, eyes shifting. No, Richard. A joke is something everyone laughs at. What you did was mockery of someone who had already given you $127,000. Rebecca's eyes widened. It wasn't that much. It was exactly that much. I have the records. Richard's face hardened. You've always been stubborn, Martha. Counting every penny. No wonder John worked himself so hard. Living with someone so rigid must have been exhausting. He twisted my late husband's memory like a weapon. Once, that would have pierced me. Now, it only confirmed what I already knew. The masks were off. I stood, calm and steady. Thank you for dinner. It was illuminating. You're leaving? Just like that? Rebecca's eyes filled. What about family? What about loyalty? I have been loyal for years, I said gently. But loyalty isn't the same as surrender. I walked to the door, my dignity intact, their folder still lying unopened on the table. I've supported you financially, emotionally, in every way a mother can, I said quietly. But loyalty goes both ways, and respect is non-negotiable. Richard gave a short mocking laugh. Great speech. Very dramatic. What happens when you need us? When you're older, frailer, unable to care for yourself? I met his gaze without flinching. I'll manage. I always have. Rebecca followed me to the door, her composure cracking. Mom, please. We can work something out. A smaller amount, maybe. I turned to her one last time. Rebecca, I will always love you. My door is open if you want to visit, as family, not as a financial lifeline. But the Bank of Martha is permanently closed. I left them standing in the doorway, Rebecca's tears theatrical, Richard's face dark with fury. Driving home, I felt no sadness, only calm certainty. I had finally done the right thing. 6 months later, I stood in the community garden, breathing in the fragrance of lavender, rosemary, thyme, and mint. Butterflies drifted from bloom to bloom. It's magnificent, Henry said, resting a warm hand on my shoulder. Over the months, our friendship had grown into a quiet, unexpected romance. Companionship and gentle affection that asked nothing of me but presence. The children love your mint, he added with a smile. Their teacher says they can't stop rubbing the leaves and smelling their fingers. I smiled, remembering how Rebecca once did the same as a little girl. The memory brought a soft pang, but not the sharp ache of before. My phone buzzed, a text from Michael. All set for lunch tomorrow. Sophie can't wait to see you, Grandma. I typed back a quick yes, heartlight. My bond with my son had deepened as he watched me stand my ground. He and his daughter visited often, out of love, not strategy. Rebecca and Richard eventually sold their oversized home and moved into something they could truly afford. We spoke occasionally now, light conversations with no mention of money. It wasn't the closeness I once imagined, but it was honest. And honesty is worth more than false harmony. Penny for your thoughts? Henry asked. Just thinking how much has changed since that dinner, I said. He nodded. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is stop enabling. We strolled through the thriving garden, greeting volunteers and neighbors. My retirement fund was safe, growing steadily under Harriet's careful guidance. My home was protected in the trust Patricia set up. My days were filled with purpose, music, and real connection. That humiliating night at Richard's promotion party had turned out to be a gift. It forced me to see what I'd ignored for years. True dignity doesn't come from what we give away. It comes from what we refuse to surrender. As Henry and I left the garden hand in hand, planning dinner and an evening of jazz, I realized I was happier at 66 than I had been in decades. The Bank of Martha was closed forever. But Martha herself, she was flourishing.